This is an example of Jones' financial records. He opened and closed numerous accounts, transferring funds between them. Check butts show the frequency with which Jones withdrew members' funds for personal use.
Well, we know for a fact that he's purchased household goods with museum funds, and also he's given himself interest-free loans to purchase vintage cars.
Without authorisation?
Without authorisation.
Even though his members paid for the cars, Jones now claims some of them as his own. But the most blatant abuse of his position is contained in this letter written to an auctioneer.
Please find enclosed cheque, number 805942, for $15,000.
The $15,000 came from members' funds for ex-SRA rolling stock, which Jones subsequently claimed for himself.
The receipt should be made out to Keith Jones. Yours sincerely, Keith Jones, Secretary-Manager.
But in 1988, Keith Jones did something that, in hindsight, was probably the biggest single contribution to the project's demise, when he turned his back on an $800,000 donation.
The Bicentennial Community Committee was advised that there were some doubts in Sydney about the structure of the museum and that it needed to be structured in a way that could accept this money. And we invited Mr Jones to a meeting, and he stated that his members would not incorporate, not even for $800,000. I believe his members were never asked, but we lost the grant.
By the beginning of 1989, a group of concerned members realised their railway was going nowhere. So a task force was formed to investigate the benefits of incorporating the group. In other words, taking a loosely run volunteer outfit and turning it into a properly managed business. The task force recommended this new company be run along democratic principles. One member, one vote. Keith Jones said no. He wanted the voting rights stacked in favour of certain members. The task force offered the job of managing director to Jones for a period of 20 years. Again, he said no, insisting that he should be installed for life. By the end of 1989, things became so bad, an increasingly disgruntled membership formed a breakaway group called the Friends of the Glenray Dorrigo Line. They were determined to see reform happen with or without Keith Jones. But by then, it was too late. They had shown their hand, and Jones got in first. Jones went public with plans for his own incorporation. Then the name was changed to Dorrigo Steam Railway and Museum Limited. For all intents and purposes, the same name the museum had operated under for years. Finally, Jones went on a recruitment drive, having declared the old museum membership extinct. But there are some potentially misleading statements in this document.
Our members have outlaid over $1 million out of their own pockets to save the collection from scrap.
Members of Jones' new company have outlaid but a fraction of this amount. However, if Jones is referring to members of the unincorporated museum, then he's recognising their long-held claim to the assets.
We are reopening the picturesque Dorrigo Branch Railway Line as our permanent site.
The line was just running suspended. It was just too big ribbons of steel across a great big avalanche where it all fell away. We restored all that.
This work was done more than 5 years ago. There has been no significant track work performed in over 3 years. Today, the entire 60 kilometres of track looks like Mick and his mates had never been near it. How much money do you think, in round terms, would have been invested?
I'd say $40,000, $50,000.
And it's been wasted?
Wasted, yes.
How does it make you feel to see all this now?
Well, it certainly dampens your enthusiasm.
Steam locomotive-hauled tourist trains will operate from Dorrigo to several points on the 43-mile line.
Just running a short service from, say, Dorrigo to Megan, 8 miles, would probably take a year to get the track into good order. It would take at least 2 years with volunteers to restore sufficient carriages and locomotives to get the train running.
It seems that, in reality, new members of Keith Jones Railway would get very little for their subscriptions and donations for many years to come. We had reason to believe Keith Jones was at home when we called to ask him about his promises and his past. But the man with the biggest train collection in the Southern Hemisphere was keeping to himself. Look, we know there's somebody in there. You answered our phone call. Could you come out and talk to us about the railway, please?
One would have to say that not only aren't we optimistic, but we are totally pessimistic that there is any financial, organisational or technical capacity that we have been able to see that can deliver what obviously is a great vision for a tourist attraction.
We've got two growth industries on the North Coast. One's social security and the other's illegal, and that's all we've got. And sitting in the middle of this town is something that could turn the whole economy of the area around.
Could you be making money out of this now if you cleaned up this depot a little, this yard here?
Yes, a fence, a toilet block, and we could have the public in here within 5 minutes.
As for Dorrigo itself, well, the town's heard it all before.
Every year there's going to be a train running, there's something going to be happening. We bring more stuff into Dorrigo, more happens, but we never get a train running.
But it is all going to happen.
Oh my word, there's no doubt about its future.
But that was 2 years ago, and the promises are running out of steam.